Hey, where's he going? We're all set.
Forget it. He was too impressed to have you arrested.
We did it again. Screwed up in reverse.
I keep telling you, we gotta give up this preoccupation with keeping people alive or we'll never get out of here.
It's no use. We're doomed.
We can't call it Suicidus Podcast.
Why not?
Because I still think Draining the Swamp is a better name.
The SEO on Draining the Swamp is gonna be fucked.
Suicide has great SEO.
I guarantee
There's nothing you can search with suicide in Google that doesn't come up with, like, hotlines and phone numbers.
I guarantee you that if you search Drain the Swamp podcast, you will get like 100 QAnon things.
And all of them have watched MASH, so all of them will be listening.
Hi, welcome to As of Yet Unnamed MASH Rewatch Podcast.
We'll kick around some ideas. See, a podcast about 3 army doctors would be great if there were more than 2 of us.
I mean, we're not doctors. It's still about the doctors.
Anyway, so I wanted to watch MASH with you.
Mm-hmm. You've been on MASH for a while. You're a big MASH head.
So one of the posters I have in my room that I'm pointing at right now is I got a little MASH 4077 poster I've had in my room for. Anyway, I've liked the show MASH because my dad and stepdad watched it because I'm a military brat. You know, nobody's perfect. And I kind of just, like, grew up with a fondness for these characters that I didn't really, like, realize I had until adulthood, and realizing I'm the only one my age that knows anything about MASH. Mm-hmm. Me and the other kids that edited the TV Tropes page back in 2007. Because we were stuck watching it on TV Land with our stepdads. But also, you have no... Oh, by the way, I'm Zach.
Oh yeah, I'm Maxie. How's it going?
You have no history with MASH, right?
The only times I've watched MASH have been with you.
Yeah, I've shown you...
We've only seen like a few episodes before this podcast.
I've shown you a few scattered episodes over the years.
Mm-hmm. Mostly in the later seasons.
Mostly in the later seasons, because that is what I mostly grew up watching and, like, remembering. And my stepdad was, like, you know, he had his MASH fandom opinions, and he was very much a late MASH guy. So that's what I ended up watching most of. But it's such a long-running show, and was such a popular show at the time. I feel like I really want to just, like, revisit it and go through the whole thing and, like, watch its evolution, because it starts a lot different than, like, the vibe of the later episodes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so, like, a few days ago... Oh, by the way, I should say, there are 256 episodes of this show.
Okay, so that's approximately 4 years if we did one episode at a time, which we're not doing.
We're not doing. I think between 2 and 3 would be good. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. This time we did 3. We did the pilot, which you'd think maybe would be like, you know, a double ep, you know, to introduce us to the characters in the world. You got to take, like, a long time to like set up everything in the pilot episode. Presumably as the episode you're pitching to networks. But I guess technically the movie, I guess, was more of a pilot episode, which I've never seen. Mm-hmm. So the pilot of MASH is just very much like a normal episode of the show.
Yeah, it sort of treats things like you already know the characters, which I don't think is necessarily a bad approach, because it does a good job of, like, selling you on them without being like, here's Hawkeye's intro scene, here's Trapper John's intro scene, etc., etc.
Yeah, so, like, just to take you through the main players of MASH, you got Hawkeye, who's the main character, a wisecracking surgeon who doesn't want to be here. Should we, like, go even one further step back and say what the fuck this show is about?
Yeah, sure. So it is set in...
Should we start over?
No, we're keeping it going.
Okay.
I like how this is. I like the energy. So MASH is a show adapted from a movie, adapted from a novel, about essentially a surgical base during the Korean War. People who are wounded in action on the U.S. South Korea side are sent there, and they describe it as basically trying to patch them up well enough that they can send them to a better hospital to get actually fixed up.
Yeah, and it's generally expected that like anyone who passes through the MASH is probably like going home afterwards. Mm-hmm. So they're just really patching up these people so they can be sent home. So, right. So another weird thing about this show is that it aired during the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got this very sometimes whiplashy tone of trying to be a popular American show on what was it, NBC, CBS? I don't actually know.
Right, but also being like, hey, maybe war's fucked up. Maybe we shouldn't just be sending people who are barely adults to go shoot communists.
And just like general like kind of touching on American interventionism and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's something that stays throughout the whole series, but in these early episodes, it is real whiplashy with
There's actually this great Futurama bit, which is parodying MASH, where they have a robot Hawkeye who literally just has a toggle between like jovial and maudlin.
That's really good, actually.
The punchline is him going like, "This isn't a war, this is a murder," and then he flicks it. "This ain't a war, it's a moida."
So you have seen MASH. We don't need to do this show.
I saw you wrote something down about the original creator of MASH, a novel about 3 army doctors.
Yes, so I was reading about the book earlier, and it's really funny that so Richard Hooker, the guy that wrote the original book, are you laughing at the man's name is Dick Hooker?
Maybe a little bit.
Oh, that was his pen name. He was kind of a real Hawkeye, so he's always making quips, making jokes. His real name was Richard Hornberger.
Shut the hell up. No, it wasn't.
So a really funny detail that I read on his Wikipedia page was that he did not really like the TV show that was eventually adapted from his book. Too liberal for him. It clashed with his conservative views. The Wikipedia page said, which is I don't know, man. That kind of like dissonance is always really funny to me when you got such like an obvious anti-war message, and then it's like how Arlo Guthrie, kid of Woody Guthrie,
he's like a libertarian.
He's like a hardcore libertarian. He's like, how is your dad Arlo Guthrie or Woody Guthrie, and you think MASH is too liberal for you? Anyway, so yeah, so we hit on the pilot. Man, do you just want to like go through the plot of the pilot real quick?
Before we touch on the pilot, I did want to say it does have one thing of pilot weirdness, which is having characters in there that just never show up again. There's 3 in particular. There's Ho-Jon, who's this young Korean, I guess, like surgical assistant.
Yeah, it's unclear what his job actually was. Just like the resident plucky boy of the MASH unit.
Yeah, the pilot deals heavily with Hawkeye and his friend Trapper John trying to basically raise money to send him to medical school in the States, and I guess they do it because he's not in any of the later episodes. But then there's also and this one struck me. There's a black doctor and a black nurse, and the black doctor actually seems to be like the 4th roommate in the swamp.
Yeah, So there are, I mean, the book is called A Novel About Three Army Doctors. And the third one is like a third wisecracking sidekick of Hawkeye and Trapper John. But he's not in the show.
So that kind of surprises me, because if anything, I would have expected that the third Doctor is, I forget, is it Henry or what's the like stick in the mud guy's name?
Oh, Frank.
Frank. I would have thought it was Frank, and he's kind of like a contrast to the other two.
Frank is in the book, and he kind of serves the same role of just the guy that they always prank on. So yeah, just to round out the main characters of this show, we talked about Hawkeye, we talked about Trapper John. There's Henry, Colonel Henry, who's the commanding officer of the unit, who's kind of a pussy and a pushover, and I kind of hate him. But we'll talk about him a little more, because he's kind of the focus of the second episode. You got Frank Burns and Hot Lips Houlihan.
Yep. And
who are the Team Rocket of the show. They are here to, at least in the early seasons, to be just pranked on, and at the end of the episode, they blast away again.
They hate wisecracks. They hate sympathizing with the victims of war.
And they love America.
And they love fucking each other outside of wedlock.
That's the theme through the whole show, really. Is no greater American pastime than cheating on your wife during wartime.
Truly.
And finally, there's the company clerk Radar. And he's called Radar because he has extrasensory perception, which seems to be literal in the early seasons, and just becomes kind of like, oh, he's just like good at hearing and is perceptive in the later ones. But at least in these early episodes, he is like finishing people's sentences. He is showing up before being called, and things like that. So that's his thing. And yeah, the pilot episode is about Hawkeye needs to save up money to take Ho-Jon back to the States, because he got I guess a scholarship at Hawkeye's alma mater. And the way they decide to do this is by auctioning off weekend passes to Tokyo, which they're hopefully going to get from
Hank.
From Hank. Wait, Hank is short for Henry, isn't it?
Yeah.
A weird one. Henry Hill. Yeah, no one calls.
Wait, isn't that the name of the guy from The Music Man? Makes you think.
Yeah, I always knew Hank Hill was real conniving. Couldn't trust that guy. So yeah, they're gonna auction off these weekend passes to Tokyo, because Hawkeye surmises that no one, or the one thing everyone in the unit wants is a vacation somewhere else. And also, they're gonna auction off sex with the hot nurse. We haven't really talked about how horny this show is.
At least at the start, this is a very horny show.
Well, Hawkeye is just a very horny character, and other characters are also almost as horny as him all the time.
That's the thing about Trapper John. I feel like, I don't know if he diverges more before he eventually leaves the show, but at least in these first couple eps, they do feel like just the same guy twice.
Yes, he does feel like the same guy twice.
So yeah, if I recall correctly, they initially get the weekend passes approved by Henry, but then Frank and Houlihan like push back on that. They're like, they're gonna have an unsanctioned party. You're gonna look bad, and he's like, never mind. You don't get the weekend passes, so they gotta connive their
specifically,
way.
he takes the weekend passes for himself, because he just goes off. Next time you see him, he's on a helicopter going away with some lady. But then Radar turns out to be cool, and turns out when he was making Henry just sign a bunch of papers earlier in the episode, he got some extra weekend passes signed off.
Yep.
For this very specific scenario, because he can see the future. So they hold the event, they get the money, which By the way, they're charging like $10 attendance for this thing, and $10 in 1950 money has to be I don't know what these people's allowance are that they get here, but damn, that's gotta be like at least $35.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is, so
we
there's...
really glossed over the part where they're auctioning off a hot nurse for sex.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
The thing about the money that struck me was they need like $2,000 total for both tuition and like getting Ho-John set up in Crabapple Cove, and that's insane. Inflation has hit hard, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to think of how much money. I mean, yeah, now that you say it, that is like relatively cheap for getting someone halfway across the world in 1950. Could you imagine growing up in South Korea for your whole life and then moving to Maine?
What do you think it's like seeing a moose if you've never seen a moose before?
I can tell you what it's like, because there was a time where I had not seen a moose before. Can you scooch a little closer, by the way? I'm not sure. I'm not too confident about these waveforms I'm seeing. There was a time where I had not seen a moose before, and I saw a taxidermy of a moose at a museum in New Hampshire, and I was just in awe. I mean, this moose wasn't even alive, and I was still scared of it.
Well, kids are scared of anything. Let me try that one again. Yeah, well, kids are scared of anything.
Adults would be scared of a moose. Have you seen a moose?
Yeah, no, moose are huge. They're like some of the only still living megafauna, basically.
I'm scared of any animal that you can hit with a car and the animal wins.
Mm.
Is that...
that's true of humans if they have a good lawyer.
Is that the pilot?
That's pretty much the pilot. Like, there are some individual bits that...
Oh, no, we didn't even bring up... No, we didn't kind of bring up the resolution here, which is...
oh, right, yeah, no.
The general comes because they get tipped off about this dumb party, and the general is a no fun allowed asshole that doesn't want someone
He and Henry are like, you two we're gonna have your asses court-martialed for this, but then
for raising money for a South Korean boy to get an education. How dare you?
But then Radar earlier, I guess, psychically predicted some Canadians were going to get injured. I wasn't clear on how they had foreknowledge of that. But, yeah, some Canadians got injured, and it's like, oh no, we got a whole shipment of soldiers we got to fix up.
You can't court-martial us now. We have to do surgery and do our jobs. And this also becomes a thing where it's like, Hawkeye is too good a doctor to fire. We never see him do it, but he is real good in there.
No, I mean, we see him do it. He's just usually flirting with a nurse.
Yeah, he's so good. He can be horny while doing surgery, and it's fine.
Maybe he's so good because he's horny. Maybe it unlocks his superpowers.
Hawkeye jacks off once, and his hair just, like, droops down. His skin becomes sullen and clammy. Starts getting the shakes. And yeah, so they come out of the operating room, and the general is like, those two doctors are the best doctors I've ever seen. You can't fire them for nothing, even if no matter how many sitcom hijinks they get into. You hear me? So yeah, that's the setup of the series. It's weird that Klinger isn't in the pilot at all, considering he becomes a main character later.
Yeah, when does Klinger join the cast?
So if you go on the Wikipedia page, you can see like the cast outline.
Yeah, there's a little chart.
There's a chart, kind of like when you look up a long-running prog band on YouTube, you might see a similar chart.
Or like when you look up the cast of The Marine.
Oh man, who's the Marine right now? I think it's still The Miz, but I'm not sure. I think
maybe it'll be Cody. He's too old to be the Marine. But he does have that like American flag tattoo or whatever on his neck.
He could be like the Coast Guard or something. Man, we gotta talk about 2 more episodes, huh? This shit's only been 20 minutes? Damn, I need a snack.
You want to take a break and then edit this bit out?
No.
Okay.
You think I'm editing this? All right, so season 1, episode 2, To Market.
Really shitty title.
Really shitty title. Really should have had something else, maybe, regarding anything in the actual episode.
The desk job.
That's better. Anyway, so the elevator pitch for this episode is that someone fucked up the shipments for medical supplies into the camp, right? Mm-hmm. So Hawkeye needs to figure out where to get some hydrocortisone, which is apparently an important chemical that you can't just get more of.
Did you look up what it is?
No, but apparently it's very important.
I can look it up.
All right, so while you look it up, I'm just going to talk through the rest of this. So the B plot of this episode is that Henry's got a real nice new desk in his office, and he's like coming all over this desk, except not really, because then he's always like cleaning it all the time.
It's like 100-year-old antique or something?
Yeah, and this is like the 50s, right? So it's like probably some shitty old Civil War desk.
Okay, it says that hydrocortisone is used for adrenocortical insufficiency, which sounds like a adrenaline/heart issue.
Okay.
High blood calcium, arthritis, asthma, and some other stuff. I think the big thing is, heart stuff and adrenaline would probably be very important in a military scenario.
Sure. All right, so they need more of that.
Mm-hmm. They actually do order a second shipment, but when it gets there, it's been picked clean for like the black market.
Yeah, so that kind of becomes like where they go next is, I guess, talking with some U.S. some like, who was that guy that they talked to?
Was this the one where the Australian? No, the Australian's in the next episode.
The random Aussie is in the next episode.
God, I can't fucking remember who tells them about the black market. I think they might already know about it.
No. I'm saying, who is the guy that they go to in his office?
Oh, my understanding is he is a local South Korean black marketeer, not like a super big deal, but enough of a major player in the Seoul area.
So yeah, and I guess Hawkeye and Trapper already know about this guy because they're of unscrupulous character. Mm-hmm. So they go to him. They try to figure out what's it gonna take for them to get some hydrocortisone off the black market. Turns out it's $10,000. So that would take 5 different fundraisers and a hot nurse to do. So they can't do that.
They offer to like barter with him, but he's just like, I already got like shit tons of every kind of medical supply.
Yeah.
And,
he shows off
tires.
how much shit he's stolen or procured.
Yeah, but then they see, oh, this guy's got like kind of a shitty desk. And come on, you're a big deal. You should look like a big deal. You should have a nicer desk than that, don't you think?
So yeah, they do the entire the con man shtick on him to get him really invested in this new desk. Mm-hmm. And now the rest of the episode is desk heist. How do we get the desk out from Henry's office?
Yes.
And
first they need to show him the desk to sell him on it.
Yeah, hold on. We're getting to the joke of the night.
So he pretends to be like a South Korean general to get an audience with Henry, and while they're doing that, he like plays up his accent and kind of like pretends to be more of a bumpkin than he is. It's a little weird.
It's they play it up a little, maybe too strong, but yeah, they're doing the whole racist accent bit, and they save it when Henry pours a drink for him, and then still trying to do the bit where he's trying to throw Henry off, lifts up the drink and says L'chaim, and it's perfect.
It's really good, actually.
Got a good guffaw out of the both of us. So yeah, that one important thing I should say, we are watching these episodes without laugh tracks, which is the way to go, I think.
Right, because there was a with laugh track edit. I know that there was never a laugh track in the surgery scenes. You mentioned this.
Yeah. So, they said, the showrunner said when the show started they didn't want canned laughter in any of the surgery scenes, which they did get allowed that. But they had canned laughter in the rest of the show. When the show aired in the UK, apparently they don't like care about that kind of thing. So, and apparently there was one airing in which the US version was aired in the UK, and like the broadcaster got complaints like, what is this bullshit, which is what they sound like over there. So yeah, in the UK airings, no laugh track at all through the whole thing. And those are the airings that I have access to thanks to archive.org, the best website on the internet. Mm-hmm. Just all the episodes are up there. I should probably download them all in case that guy that wrote all the Star Wars novels doesn't like MASH. Mm-hmm. I forget his name.
It's like Chuck Wendig.
I was going to say Chuck Wendig, but then I was like, that could have been like some other guy. I don't know.
So, important thing. The local black market guy is like, okay, I'm in for the desk. I'm going to send a truck here at 0600. You need to have the desk out by then. My guy's not going to wait. And his guy has actually met Frank. He was trying to sell him some watches. He's like in this military uniform. He's just like pulling up his pant leg to show off all these wristwatches, which is a pretty good gag. But that means that when he actually does show up, Hank recognizes him and like gets spooked. Starts some shit.
Yeah, so they're under very tough time constraints to get this desk out of the office in time. Now Hank is grilling the van driver, trying to chase him off. Radar is trying to get out there to try to assuage the situation a bit, buy some more time.
They're also locked in the office because earlier Hank and Houlihan were like checking in, like, I thought I heard something. And
you mean Frank and Houlihan.
Yeah, sorry, Frank and Houlihan checked in on them. It's like, must be getting tired. Let's make out. And then they did, and then they fucked off, but they locked him in the office. Because
for some reason, the commanding officer's office locks from the outside.
It's so weird.
So the only way out, they decide, is through, so they cut down the entire back wall of the office. Which, what are these places made out of?
I mean, they've got to be, like, set up pretty quickly.
Well, yeah. I mean, one, I'd be pissed if, like, I was living in tents and then my commanding officer gets walls. Mm-hmm. Even if they're just, like, thin drywall.
Yeah, no, I'm assuming it's a pretty, like, a step above a set, yes. Basically. It's one of those portable classrooms.
Oh, man. Saying stuff about portable classrooms, really bringing back some memories. Anyway, where the hell were we?
They cut down the back wall and they start carrying the table out, but Frank is still out front and being a real pain in the ass, so they have to like go around him. They end up pretending, they throw a tarp over the desk and they pretend that they're praying, because Frank is a very religious man and he takes that seriously.
It's like they dropped Ned Flanders into the show for 5 seconds, just for this one gag in which Homer tries to tell him they're praying out on the front desk, or whatever. So yeah, Hank. Now I'm calling him Hank. Frank buys that, but it's too late. The van's gone. Mm-hmm. And then the final sight gag of the episode is Henry getting back from wherever he was. I guess getting up in the morning, because I guess they did this overnight. Mm-hmm. And a helicopter kind of like crests a hill in the back, and you see the desk dangling from the helicopter as it flies, presumably to Seoul. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted it to just slam into the side of a hill, that the perspective looked perfect for it to just do that. But it didn't. It just flies away. And I liked this episode more than I thought I would for a second episode in the series.
This is honestly really well constructed. It is not as... I'm using the word sitcom-y a lot, if you know what I mean. It feels like there are certain plots in this series that feel very unique and well crafted. They hold up, and then there's ones like episode 3 where it's like, what did they just do a Three Stooges short for this? What's going on here? This is a good one, and I think it is honestly really impressive that they were able to just bang one out like this first season. I don't know what the production order was like. Maybe they had several episodes that got reshuffled, but this is a good one.
Trying to think of, I mean, like, you know, I'm always impressed with any show that uses a helicopter in any of its filming, because that seems like the hardest shit to do, and you gotta be like so specialized to be able to do it, whether it's aerial shots, whether it's just having a helicopter in the shot, whether it's having a helicopter carry a desk and not slam into anything. I wonder if they had more than one desk on set in case something happened.
A backup desk.
It was kind of sad seeing Henry back on his shitty old desk in the next episode. He just got like, it looks like a fucking like a tin like kitchen island that you would see in a commercial kitchen. But yeah, season 1, episode 3, Requiem for a Lightweight, which is, speaking of a sitcom-y episode, this feels like a season 8 episode where they were running out of ideas.
Extremely.
And just like, well, it's a situation comedy. So what kind of situation can we come up this week? And they forgot the comedy part.
I will say, though, the title, very good.
Is it?
Well, it's a play on Requiem for a Heavyweight, which I want to say was a Twilight Zone episode, but it might have been a movie. But in this case, it's a lightweight because the guy sucks at boxing.
So yeah, after yet another opening scene where everyone's doing surgery and flirting at the same time.
They're flirting especially hard because there's like a new super hot nurse.
Maybe a little too much flirting. Like, have a little bit of professionalism, you guys.
He needs to keep his boner up or his hands will start shaking. He'll make the incision wrong.
We all need distractions from the horror of war. So yeah, basically, how does the plot of this episode even get set up? Henry's talking to a general on the phone, and something gets brought up about like some intra-unit boxing tournament.
And this other guy, he's got like a real killer. He's got the Ivan Drago of army doctors.
Presumably,
I guess.
this guy's a doctor, also, right?
Yeah. Hey, I guess he didn't take the Hippocratic Oath too seriously.
So yeah, the 4077 needs to find someone who can box, and for some reason they decide Trapper John, because maybe we can give him some sort of personality trait, and maybe this is a chance to do that.
Yeah, the specific scenario is this hot new nurse, Hawkeye flirts with her a little too much, and Houlihan is like, hey, stop being a fucking pervert to my personnel, which, honestly, may be fair.
Maybe a little fair. I mean, like, it depends if that nurse was, like, having a problem with it, I guess.
I mean, listen, she did seem receptive, but also, you know. So what Houlihan does is basically she has the nurse transferred, and Hawkeye and Trapper John freak out like, no, that nurse is so hot, we gotta get her back. Also, she's probably, like, a good nurse or whatever, but she's so hot. We're never gonna fuck her like this. And they go to...
Completely forgot about the other hot nurse. That was the pilot was all about her. Mm-hmm. We don't care about her anymore. We got this new hot nurse.
So yeah, they go to Henry and they're like, listen, you gotta get this nurse transferred back. And he's like, okay, I'll do it if one of you can go 3 rounds against the Killer.
Which is his stage name, the Killer.
Mm-hmm. It's better than Kid Doctor, which is what Trapper John goes with.
Really, really bad on both of them, honestly. My favorite line of this episode is when Hawkeye just is trying to convince Trapper to do the boxing match instead of himself. Mm-hmm. And he just says, you have a cute body.
It's very gay.
And it's not. It's like said amongst a bunch of quips, but isn't said like a quip.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like.
You got a cute body.
Yeah, the specific setup is basically Hawkeye's like, well, I used to box, but my arm's acting
my
up.
shoulder. You know how it is with this shoulder and all.
You do know how it is with this shoulder
I'm
and
gonna
all.
crack my shoulder right now.
Damn.
It did. The gates on the mic. It didn't show up.
Aww. But yeah, so he's like, listen, I'll train you up, and then you just do the best you can. But the thing is that Trapper John is a doctor, and the only exercise he gets is fucking. So it doesn't go great. So they decide to cheat. And they go to this Australian man
For
who's
some
there.
reason, at the boxing match, they're getting set up, and there's just an Australian guy coaching them, like beforehand, telling them what's gonna,
Right. Now, the thing you got to do, Trapper, is you got to jab, right? Keep jabbing. Jabbing, right?
He's just Australian, I guess.
Listen, sometimes
didn't-
people are Australian.
I didn't take a-
Everyone is different. No two people are the same.
Was there Australian presence in Korea at this time?
Fuck if I know. I didn't know there was Canadian presence in Korea at this time.
That I can believe, just because.
Sure, they're right next door.
They're
I'm sure
right
we
next
had like
door.
a strategic alliance.
Yeah.
Is Australia in NATO? I'm looking this up.
Here's how politically unaware I am. Was NATO around in the 50s?
I don't know that either. Also, it looks like Australia was only granted Enhanced Opportunities Partners status in 2014, so I doubt they were a member of NATO in 1950 whatever. Anyway, there's an Australian here, and he's like, listen, this is a Three Stooges-ass plot. We're going to do a Three Stooges-ass technique. You're going to soak your glove in ether. And you don't even have to punch him. You just have to get your glove under his nose and just keep it there. Which, honestly, it is a really good visual gag because that's how the entire fight is structured.
It is really funny. They do multiple shots of him trying not to get clobbered in the fight while just holding the glove out in front of him. Do you know how the guys with the torches fight in Elden Ring?
Yeah.
She's laughing, so, she gets it.
They do just, like, poke the torch at you. And sometimes when they get close, they just, like, push you and then push you again. And
But they just hold the torch out, and
Yeah.
you can't get in. It's impenetrable.
you know what? He should have tried a jump attack, Killer. He should have read the messages outside the ring. But the thing is, when they go to soak Trapper's glove, it's been swapped out for ordinary water by Frank and Houlihan for some reason. I think
They want to foil their plans. You know how they are.
Right. They don't want the nurse transferred back because Houlihan hates it when other people fuck.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
But then that ends up just being nothing, because, then the next round, Hawkeye's like, oh, wait, someone replaced the ether with water. They replace it with ether again, and then the plan works. Mm-hmm. So, what was the point?
The point was to buy a little more time with Trapper running around with his gay little arm out.
Buy a little more time so we can get to 22 minutes broadcast. Listen, we got to make 24 the season orders for 24 episodes. Damn.
We do need to talk about the ending to this episode. It's it's pretty thin on plot. There's not too much to discuss there.
Oh yeah, I caught a continuity error with Radar's cigar. Radar's chewing on an unlit cigar during the boxing match, and I actually really like it. It's a really good background gag where everyone's chomping on these lit cigars, and Radar's isn't even lit because he's 17 or whatever, even though the actor's 37. And then it just between shots it'll disappear and appear again.
Maybe he's actually smoking them, but he's just doing it really fast.
He's just like in a cartoon, just in one drag, just.
But yeah, the episode ends. Basically, the ether plan works. Killer goes down. The nurse gets transferred back to the unit, and Trapper John starts flirting with her a bunch. And Hawkeye's trying to get in, hey, I coached him. I used to box, but my arm, and he just gets iced, and they presumably fuck. You think they fucked in front of him? I don't know what kind of shit Hawkeye and his boyfriend are up to, is all I'm saying.
I think they let Hawkeye watch.
Okay.
They definitely fucked in front of Frank.
And he didn't leave because he was too mad. And also he was popping a stiffy and it would have hurt to walk.
He was reading the Bible with just a scowl on his face. So yeah, that was the first 3 episodes of MASH. So we're about, I think 1.3% through the entire thing. What are you thinking so far?
Should I give an answer pretending I've only seen the first 3 episodes, or should I give the actual answer?
You've seen like 6 episodes total. Let's not get carried away.
Okay, listen. It's definitely still finding its footing, but I've seen some episodes from later in the series, and I do think it's going to find that footing.
Any favorite characters so far? Anyone popping out as someone you actually care about?
I mean, Hawkeye's good. I think he works really well as the protagonist. I think something that a lot of media does. I think this is usually less of a problem with sitcoms, but it's not unknown. Like, I feel like Jerry is the least interesting of the main 4 on Seinfeld. I feel like a lot of media, they make the protagonist the least interesting because they're trying to make them the most relatable, and everybody around them is bouncing off of them. But I don't think that's a problem with Hawkeye. I think he's pretty compelling. I like his quips. His actor does a real good job.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think Alan Alda in particular just does a good quip. He's got the voice for it. His accent serves him well in giving off kind of like the Groucho vibes.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I feel like Alan Alda is good at making his characters' quips sound like they're actually off the dome.
Yes, absolutely. But other than him, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of into Henry.
Oh yeah, go on.
Frank serves the plot well enough, but I'm not like super interested in him, and I feel like his job could be done just as easily by just Houlihan.
I'm really into this version of Radar that's in these early episodes as like the co-conspirator, always doing deals on the down low to help out Hawkeye and Trap. But that's like so not what his character turns into. His character turns into like the oh golly gee guys, like I'm just reading comic books and talking about my old family farm. And that's kind of like what Radar's character turns into. So seeing him kind of have the the
Klinger job, right?
The Klinger role, yeah, is kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a real gradual thing. I'm really interested in just like how, because this is such a long running show, and the writing credits eventually get overhauled like completely. Like the writing staff at the beginning of the show, complete ship of Theseus from the end of the show. And I feel like that's the only reason why the characters seem to actually develop as much as they do, just because you get other people in the writing room, they're gonna eventually have different like takes on these characters.
But that kind of surprises me, because I feel like a lot of the time when people talk about that with sitcoms, they talk about how like, yeah, the new writing staff didn't really get the characters, and they gradually get more exaggerated. This feels like sort of an inversion of that, where the characters still work pretty well, and in some cases get more nuanced or find more of a niche.
I'm out of stuff to say.
That's all right.
Turns out there's not a lot to say about the first 3 episodes of a show in which they haven't quite found their footing yet. So hopefully I'm just trying to like get across like my history with this show, and see how much of it is like, how much of my reverentness, that's a word, for this show is like deserved, and how much of this is rose-tinted glasses, how much of this, honestly, I'm super interested in going through it, just like kind of thinking about the time it was produced, kind of like the anti-war message that it was allowed to give at the time, and like the specific modes in which it tried to convey that message. You know, all of that shit combined with like how this was literally the most popular show in the country at the time that it was airing at its peak.
Doesn't it still hold like a lot of records?
The finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, still holds the record for highest percentage of television sets tuned in to the same broadcast that wasn't a Super Bowl. It's been beaten by sporting events since, but as far as a scripted show goes, it's still the record. There's an old urban legend that New York City's plumbing had like a surge problem 3 minutes after the end of the last episode. I don't know how true that is. I think it's just an urban legend, but
Would have been real bad for the Gators.
And the Turtles. But yeah, that's MASH episodes 1 through 3. We're probably gonna do 3 more episodes next time, hopefully. I mean, the sooner we can get out of season 1, the better, right? That's how it always goes with long-running shows, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for listening. No one's listening to this.
You don't know that.
Well, once we're like a year in, it'll be more established. People will come back to the first one and see how bad this one is. Oh, how far they came. It's just like the show.
Man, it was so weird how on episode 3 of Suicide's podcast, they just had a boxing match. We can't do that because obviously I would win.
And yeah, there must be a different podcast because I don't know any podcast by that name. Thank you for listening to Drain the Swamp. We'll be back next time. I'm Zach.
I'm Maxie. Did you have a sign-off in mind?
We'll think of one later.